I welcome you to this presentation. Today we're supposed to have the development of the heart, but the doctor who was supposed to take us on that topic has some reasons, so that's why I've decided to continue with the development of the GIT, or the growth anatomy of the GIT. So last time we did the major layers of the GIT. I introduced you to the GIT, and we also looked at the esophagus. Then let's now move on to the stomach. So without wasting much of your time, guys, the stomach is simply a dilated segment of the digestive tract, whose main functions are as follows. So some of the functions of the stomach is to continue the digestion of the carbohydrates, which are initiated by the amylase of saliva. So the digestion of carbohydrates, as we already know, starts in the mouth, and then it continues. So it continues, and then from there the stomach adds acidic fluid to the ingested food and mix its content into a viscous mass called a chyme by the churning activity of the muscularis. So he said all the GIT lumens have four major layers, which are the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis, and the serosa. So the muscularis, we said it has smooth muscles. So those smooth muscles are responsible for the contraction activity of the stomach, and then they help in the formation of a chyme, which is simply the mixing of the content, which is the acid and other fluids, forming a chyme. So the muscles which are responsible is simply the layer which is called the muscularis externa. So it also begins digestion of triglycerides by a secreted lipase. So lipase is an enzyme which digests the triglycerides, and it also promotes the initial digestion of proteins with enzyme pepsin. So those are some of the functions of the stomach. Now let's move on to the major regions. So the stomach is made up of four major regions. It is made up of four major regions, which are the cardia, the fundus, the body, and the pylorus. Okay, so let's just see these four major regions. So we have the fundus, which is the upper part of the stomach, and then we have the cardia. The cardia is simply this region here. And then from there we have the body. So the body is much larger. So the body, this is the body of the stomach. Then from there we have the pylorus, which is simply a cone-like structure at the end which joins to the duodenum. That is the pylorus of the stomach. So those are the four major regions of the stomach. We have the fundus, we have the cardia, we have the body, and we have the pylorus. Now let's look at the content and the main structures of these four major regions of the stomach. So the cardia is a narrow transitional zone, which is about 1.5 to 3 centimeter wide. So it is about 1.5 to 3 centimeter wide, and it is between the esophagus and the stomach. So between the esophagus and the stomach, as you can see here, the esophagus is there and the stomach is here. So that part there is the fundus. That is the fundus, and now the cardio is in between part of the esophagus and the stomach there. That is the cardio. It is in between the two, the stomach and the esophagus. That is what we call the cardia, and it is 1.5 to 3 centimeter wide. wide, you know what it means. So from there, let's move on to the pylorus. The pylorus is this cone-shaped region there. So it is funnel-shaped region that opens into the small intestine, mainly the duodenum. So both these regions are primarily involved with the mucus production. So this region is involved in mucus production and are histologically similar. They are histologically similar. Okay, and when you say histologically, meaning the cells which form these two regions, which are the cardia and the pylorus, are almost similar histologically. And then let's now look at these major regions, which are the fundus and the body. So these regions are identical as well in microscopic structure and are the site of gastric glands. So gastric glands are mainly located in the fundus and the body of the stomach, which now these glands, they release what we call acidic gastric juice. So that's what is released by the fundus and the body. Now in their lumens we have the gastric glands. Now those gastric glands release what we call the acidic gastric juice. Okay, so let's move on. The mucosa of the mucosa and the submucosa of the empty stomach have large longitudinal directed folds, which are called regi. So an empty stomach has large and longitudinal directed folds. So it forms folds. When the stomach is empty, it forms folds. We know what folds are. So those folds are called regi. So these folds now flatten now when the stomach fills with food. So these are folds. We have let's say this is the stomach, and this is when now when it is full, when you have eaten something. But when it is empty, it will start forming folds. Something like this. These are the folds. These are the folds I'm talking about. So these folds are formed when the stomach is empty. Now they will flatten when the stomach is filled with food. And the wall in all regions of the stomach is made up of 4 major layers. So we looked at those layers. So in all these 4 regions, the body, the fundus, the pylorus, and the cardia region of the stomach is made up of 4 layers, the ones we discussed about earlier.